Today I'm in Vienna, tracing the footsteps of one particularly beloved 19th century royal empress. Empress Elisabeth, or Sisi, is famous for her eccentricities. She had a tattoo, worked out, and drank wine for breakfast every day. She was a woman who went against the grain.
There's something enticing about this empress who wanted more from life than just producing heirs. But what is it exactly?
The drama, the tragic events in her life, a love affair. She was assassinated when she was 61 years old. All this is a mixture for fascination. Plus, of course, she was from royalty.
The Austrian capital is where Sisi reigned, so I'm here to find out what it is about her that gives her this incredible legacy.
My first stop of the day is the Hofburg Imperial Palace.
This was the political centre of the monarchy, and today it fulfills the same role for the Democratic Republic. Every former Austrian empress and emperor lived here, including Sisi, of course.
Her old rooms have been turned into a museum, and since I admittedly had never heard of Sisi before I moved to Germany, I think I better start here. First of all, who actually was Empress Elisabeth, or Sisi?
Sisi, as we know her, is actually Empress Elisabeth. She was the queen, she was the empress, the wife of Emperor Franz Joseph, so she was a member of the Habsburg dynasty, a European royal dynasty which actually was one of the leading families of Europe. The Habsburg Empire of her time, we're speaking now about the second half of the 19th century, was a great power here in Central Europe. And so Elisabeth, Empress Elisabeth, as we call her, because Sisi actually is her nickname. So she was also only known as Sisi within the family.
In Germany and Austria, Sisi is an icon. These films from the 1950s air nearly every Christmas. And two new productions about her, a film and a TV series, were released just last year.
I'm getting the feeling that people have this kind of obsession with her. Why do you think that is?
Empress Elisabeth, she's a very interesting historic figure because the more we get distant from her actually lifetimes, the more she becomes a pop cultural phenomenon, because during her lifetimes actually she was definitely not part of public life, especially in the later decades of her life. She more or less withdrew from public life. She abhorred all the traditions, all the conservative traditions of Habsburg court, whereas nowadays she's more or less a symbol of this Habsburg dynasty. She's like the iconic Habsburg of our time, although she actually was a complete misfit during her lifetime. She was really an outsider, you could call her, and which actually also makes her very interesting for our modern period, because she somehow dared to question the role models which were used for, or which she was expected to fulfill as a wife, as an empress, as a mother, because she had very individual ways to lead her life, and which actually shocked the period society.
Sisi also withdrew from public life as she got older. In the palace-turned-museum, you can see the gymnastics apparatus that she used every morning, as well as her bathtub. Sisi apparently took warm baths in olive oil. She spent much of her time in her private rooms here, writing poetry or studying. But you can also walk through the stately rooms of the palace that were less private, and imagine what royal life here would have been like. My next stop is Vienna's Empress Elisabeth Memorial in the Volksgarten, not far from the Hofburg Palace. Here I'm meeting author and tourist guide Renate Hofbauer, who has spent her life studying the moody and intellectual empress.
I like this place so much because I like the way Sisi is shown here. You can see her beauty, her charisma, her majestic posture. And it's also a very calm place, usually. Very few people come here. And I think that also kind of points at her loneliness.
That loneliness that you speak of, can you tell me more about that?
She was certainly not very well understood. As a matter of fact, I think she was looking for real love and real personal happiness, but everything she could find at the court was stiffness, rules, and she had to present that and to produce children, of course male children. Yeah? So she was reduced to that. She was a very intelligent woman, and so she also had nobody at the court to exchange ideas, because she liked to talk about interesting things in literature or history or whatever, theater, and she was criticized all the time for everything, how she behaved. She was anorexic. That was a sickness nobody knew about at the time, but you can also see, nowadays we know, it is rooted in unhappiness, in not being understood, in psychological problems, and this explains a lot of what she did. She was very restless. This is typical. It's a symptom of anorexia. Yeah?
I'm starting to think it sounds like Sisi wasn't really suited for royal life. Renate takes me to Schönbrunn Palace in the southwest of Vienna. It was the summer residence of the Habsburg family. Sisi spent a lot of time here. It's the largest castle in Austria, and together with its gardens, a UNESCO World Heritage Site.
So did Sisi actually want to be an empress?
I don't think so. She fell in love with Francis Joseph, yeah, and I think she wanted to have a good marriage, yeah, a loving marriage, and she told her mother, "Oh, I wish he was a tailor."
What happened to that marriage then? Was it happy for long?
Not really, I think. The problem started in the honeymoon already. Okay. Where Elisabeth was alone with her mother-in-law in the Luxembourg Palace south of Vienna, where the mother-in-law already started to educate her. Yeah,
during the honeymoon period.
Yes, as to be an empress and to represent and so on. Whereas Francis Joseph went to Vienna every day to work and came back in the evening. I don't think that's a dream honeymoon.
It's not so romantic, no. So can you tell me about the assassination of Sisi?
Yeah, she was assassinated by an Italian anarchist while she was traveling to Switzerland. He didn't really have anything against her personally. He just wanted to strike the monarchy or to hit the feudal system. He just was against the political system. And that's why he had already chosen the Duke of Orléans as a victim, but he couldn't get hold of him, and that's why he took the next person representing to him this system.
A tragic end to a tragic life.
Now that I've learned so much about the Empress, her life, her history, I want to see if I can get a taste of what her life was like here in Vienna. For that, I'm visiting one of Vienna's oldest and most renowned confectionaries.
Café Demel has been a Viennese institution since 1786. They're located right next to the Hofburg Palace, and Sisi was very fond of their delicacies.
Candied violet blossom leaves.
These were Sisi's favourite sweets.
She used to get them personally delivered to the Hofburg by Mr. Demel himself. So of course I have to try them. Ooh, well, they taste like those violet sweets that you used to eat as a kid, only better, which you would hope because they're almost 20 euros a pop. My next and final stop of the day is a very special one.
This jeweller has been here for over 200 years, and in 1858 they created a set of diamond stars for Sisi's hair.
The Sisi stars.
Christoph Köchert's family designed many pieces for the Empress.
She had a lot of jewelry, and we were lucky enough to provide this jewelry. And funny enough, I mean, she had huge pieces, amazing pieces. But these diamond stars, they also became iconic because there was a very famous painting by Winterhalter, which is in the Hofburg and then the Hotel Imperial. You see the big pictures. And she's painted with long hair, a wonderful long hair, which went down to here. And her hair was adorned with these diamond stars.
I also want to ask, do you think it might be possible for me to try the stars myself?
Of course, with pleasure. So here you have tiara with the diamond stars. Here you see the copies of the original 27, and Sisi had a case exactly like this, and they looked exactly like that, her 27 stars. And here we put them in the tiara, and maybe you would like to try it.
I'd love to.
May I?
Yes, please. Dare I ask how much something like this costs?
This tiara, like it is here, it's about 77,000 euros.
Okay, so I'll just sit here very carefully. Hasn't it been fun to dip our toes into the world of this Austrian empress? Honestly, it seems like Sisi was pretty iconic. I can totally see why people are so fascinated by her, and it seems like her legend will live on for a long time to come. What are your thoughts on Sisi? Are you on board the hype? Let us know in the comments.